Okay, so today we're going to look at transforming f of x as 1 over x. So our base function is f of x is equal to 1 over x, and it's called the reciprocal. Oh no, sorry, it's called the rational function. Okay? So, for key points, let's start like we did with the parabola. Negative 2, let's say. Well, for negative 2, y is equal to 1 over negative 2. So negative 0.5. Okay, for negative 1, y is equal to 1 over negative 1. So negative 1. Okay, so that means I have 2 points here. Negative 2, negative 0.5, and negative 1, negative 1. Okay, now I go to plug in 0. Well, 1 divided by 0, if you put that into the calculator, it says error. And so that we're not allowed to do. We're never allowed to divide by 0. So what happens at 0 is we have something called a vertical asymptote. Okay, so that means that our function's never going to touch that line. Okay? So if it's not going to get to 0, let's see what happens when we plug in negative 0.5. 1 over negative 0.5 is actually negative 2. So negative 0.5 is negative 2. So our function looks like that, which means as we get closer to this asymptote, we get big negative values. And as we get further, we actually get values that are close to 0. So if I were to plug in like negative 100, I would get negative 1 over 100, which is a tiny number close to 0. So that's why our function looks like that purple thing. Okay, these points just get closer and closer and closer to the asymptote. Okay, now 0 we can't do, so there's our asymptote. Okay, so what happens after? Well, if I plug in 1, I get 1 divided by 1, which is 1, so I get a point at 1, 1. When I plug in 2, I get 1 divided by 2, which is 0.5. So 2 is 0.5. So I left this spot here because I also want to do 0.5. 1 divided by 0.5 is 2. Well, that means I get x is 0.5, y is 2. So there's my other part of this function. It's up here in the positive quadrant, right? So there's some values in the positive and some values in the negative. Okay? So key takeaway is we need to remember these 6 key points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they look the same in the positive and in the negative. Okay? And there's reminder, there's 2 what we call asymptotes. So our vertical asymptote is this one that x is 0, right? So x can't be 0. It's a vertical line. And then there's a horizontal asymptote that's right here, which means that y is never going to be 0. Okay? So the function just keeps getting closer and closer to both of those asymptotes from various sides. Okay? All right. So let's do describing the combination of transformations, and then we're going to write the equation. Okay? So here we know that this 4 is happening to the y value, so it's a vertical stretch by 4. All right? And then I can look at this here. Well, that is a horizontal translation, 3 right. And then we can look at this part out here. That is a vertical translation, up 0.5. Right? So again, adding, subtracting to the x is horizontal and always opposite. So x minus 3 is 3 to the right. adding, subtracting to the whole function is vertical translation, and multiplying the whole function is vertical stretch. So what does that function look like? G of x is equal to, well, it's going to be 4 times, and then remember it was 1 over x, except now it's not just x, it's x minus 3 plus 0.5. Okay, so this is one way to write it. It's completely correct. I can also remember that for fractions, I do numerator times numerator, which means that this is also going to be 4 over x minus 3 plus 0.5. Also correct. Okay? All right. So here, nothing out here, so there is no vertical stretch or compression. There is this -2. So the negative, it's on the inside with the x, so it's horizontal. The negative makes it a reflection, so horizontal reflection. Okay, then the 2 makes it, again, horizontal because it's in with the x. And then multiplying by 2 is either a stretch or a compression. So because it's times 2, it's a compression, always opposite. Okay, so horizontal compression by 1/2. Okay, then let's have a look at this 0.5. Well, that is, again, it's happening to the x, so it's horizontal. It's plus 0.5, so it's left 0.5. And then this -1 to the whole function, because it's happening to the whole function outside the x, it's vertical. And it's subtracting 1, so it's a translation down 1. So let's look at this equation. So normally it would be 1 over x, but now it's not just x, it's this whole thing. So -2x plus 0.5, and then -1. Okay? So let's do everything here. So I'll make a table of values for the parent function. Okay, so we know it's -2, -0.5, -1, -1, and then -0.5, -2. 0 is an asymptote, positive 0.5 is 2, positive 1 is 1, and positive 2 is 0.5. So let's plot those. So I know that there's going to be asymptotes here and here. And I'll plot everything. So -2, -0.5, -1, 1, -0.5, 2. And then there's this 0.5, 2, 1, 1, and 2, 0.5. Okay. So there's my base function. Describe your transformations. So this 2 makes it a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. This -1 makes it a horizontal translation 1 right. And this +2 makes it a vertical translation 2 up. Okay, so let's write our mapping statements. So x is going to map to, well, it's just 1 to the right. So x plus 1. And then y is going to map to stretch by 2. So 2y, and then translate 2 up, plus 2. So x plus 1, 2y plus 2. Okay, and we're going to do these ones in purple, and we'll plot them. Okay, now, before I plot these points, and before I make the points, okay, I want to point out that I'm translating 1 to the right. So this asymptote here, okay, is going to be translated 1 to the right. Okay, so asymptotes just get translated. You can't really stretch a line, so the asymptote is just going to be translated. So that means that I get a new vertical asymptote 1 to the right. Okay, and the horizontal asymptote that was here, that's going to get translated 2 up. So that means I get a new horizontal asymptote there. Okay? So now let's calculate the points and let's make sure that they fit. So -2, so x's, -2 plus 1 is -1, -1 plus 1 is 0, -0.5 plus 1 is 0.5, 0 plus 1 is 1, that's going to be my asymptote. 0.5 plus 1 is 1.5, 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, and let's do the y's. 2 times -0.5 is -1, plus 2 is 1. 2 times -1 is -2, plus 2 is 0. 2 times -2 is -4, plus 2 is -2. Asymptote. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 2 is 4, and 2 times a half is 1, plus 2 is 3. So let's see if we plot these and it all works out, hopefully. So -1, 1. -1, 1. Point there. 0, 0. Point there. 0.5, -2. 0.5, -2. Okay, and then, because I have the asymptotes drawn, you see how I can see that it goes closer to there, and this is going to go closer to there. Okay? Let's do the other side. 1.56, 2, 4, and 3, 3. All right, so everything looks like it fits with the asymptotes. That is good news. Okay, so it's important that we draw the new asymptotes and then we do the points. Let's do this. Okay, so this negative is going to give us a vertical reflection. Okay, this 2 is going to give us a horizontal compression by 1/2. Plus 5 is a horizontal translation, 0.5 left, and -1 is a vertical translation, 1 down. Okay, so let's make our table of values. This is our old one. 2, -1/2, -1, -1, -1/2, 2. 0 is the asymptote, and then positives. Okay, and I'll plot that as well. So okay, there's that one, and then there's that one. Okay, now our mapping statements. X has a compression of 1/2, so 1/2 x, and 1 left, 0.5 left, so minus 0.5, and then vertical reflection, so negative y, and translation 1 down, -1. Okay, so -2, so 1/2 of -2 is -1, And negative 1 minus a half is negative 1.5. A half of negative 1 is negative a half. Take away 0.5 is negative 1. A half of negative a half is negative a quarter. Minus a half is negative 0.75. Zero is my... half of 0 is 0. Negative 0.5 is my asymptote. Okay. And then a half of 0.5 is a quarter. Minus a half is negative a quarter. A half of 1 is a half. Minus a half is 0. A half of 2 is 1. Minus a half is 0.5. Okay, let's do the y values. So negative y minus 1. So negative a half is positive a half. Take away 1 is negative a half. Negative 1 is positive 1. Take away 1 is 0. Negative 2 is positive 2. Take away 1 is 1. Negative 2 take away 1 is negative 3. Negative 1 take away 1 is negative 2. And negative a half take away 1 is negative 1.5. Okay, so first let's move the asymptotes. So vertical asymptote is going to get moved. So horizontal translation 0.5 left. So there's a new asymptote here. And then horizontal, the other asymptote is going to get translated vertically down 1. So this asymptote's going to be here. Okay, and let's see if that works out when I plot these new points. So negative 1.5, negative a half. So negative 1.5, negative a half. Negative 1, 0. And then negative 0.75, 1. Negative 0.75, 1. Okay, so that makes sense. Here we're getting close to this asymptote, and here we're getting close to that asymptote. Okay, so those 3 points work. And then negative a quarter, negative 3. So negative a quarter, negative 3. 0, negative a half. Sorry, 0, negative 2. And then 0.5, negative 1.5. 0.5, negative 1.5. Right. So again, that makes sense. Here we're getting close to the asymptote, and here we're getting close to the asymptote. That's it. So trick is graph the asymptotes first, translate your points, graph your points, and that's it. Okay.